Welcome to Speak Out. I'm Sandy Galef, a member of the New York State Assembly, representing parts of Northern Westchester and parts of Putnam County. And today we're going to be talking about veteran opportunities, opportunities for our veterans. And I'm so excited to have my three very important guests with me today who served in the military and serve in our community so well. And I'm going to start and introduce Willy Nazario, who is the Military Order of the Purple Heart and the Department of New York State Commander. Did I get it right?
You got it right.
Okay, all right. And Eugene Lang, who is the Senior Vice Commander of the Military Order of the Purple Heart, Chapter 21. Chapter 21 covers?
It's pretty much, we cover Westchester County and Putnam County.
Mm-hmm. And Karl Rohde, who is Director of Putnam County Veterans Service Agency.
Correct.
Welcome, Karl. I just, just to start, if Karl, just where did you serve? What, how have you been involved with veterans? Because I know you've been doing this for a very long time.
Yeah, I served in Vietnam in the Army infantry. I've been involved for the last 25, 30 years in veterans issues. I'm past state commander of the VFW, and it's a labor of love.
Mm-hmm. How did you decide to get into all those veterans issues? Did you see needs out there?
No, yelling and screaming. I wasn't going to get involved. I joined the VFW just because a friend was going to be the commander and asked me to join. I had no desire to do anything. I just wanted to, just said I'd be a member to help him out. And as I started going to meetings and learning about veterans issues, I decided then that, yeah, I want to get involved at a local level. Never realized it was going to spread the way it has, but it did.
That's great. Well, you provide so much compassion and are involved in so many services that help other people. So it's good you said yes.
Thank you.
And Eugene, where were you serving?
Okay, I served as a Vietnam combat veteran. Served with the 1st Air Cav. I was wounded in Vietnam. 44 years later, I got my Purple Heart. And that's when I started getting involved with the Military Order of the Purple Heart. Right. Willie was at my house when Senator Schumer came over and he presented my Purple Heart to me.
What year was that? Was that just a couple of years ago?
Yes, it was, 2012.
Right.
So since 2012, I've been active.
And because I remember there were articles in the paper.
Right, there were several articles.
Very special. Now, did you have a relative that was kind of pushing to, because you weren't doing that?
No, I started pushing back in 1990.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, when I came back from Vietnam, I hid the fact that I was even a veteran because of what was going on in the country. But in 1990, when it was the first Gulf War, I decided I was going to do something about it. And I felt I deserved my Purple Heart. I was wounded in combat, never received my Purple Heart. So I started in 1990, and for 22 years, I fought to get my Purple Heart. In 2010, the Journal News got involved. Also, what happened was I was helping out a World War II veteran, and he introduced me to an attorney. He's a retired brigadier general. He's also an attorney, and his name is Donald Singer. So he started getting the ball rolling. And with him, he interviewed all my eyewitnesses. I had a total of 4 eyewitnesses. That's including my captain, my platoon sergeant, and 2 of the fellows that I served with. So we went on from there. Went to different senators, congresspeople, and not much luck. All of my paperwork was just passed on. And 2010 also, the Journal News got involved. And that's when I was on the front page. I don't know how many times I've been on the front page of that paper.
Right.
And they just kept on going.
For such a good cause, yeah.
And what happened was the Journal News went to Senator Schumer. And within 2 months, I got my Purple Heart.
Wow. Wow.
But all that
paper problems in Washington even back then, I guess.
Oh yeah, a lot of red tape.
Right. But well, I'm assuming that there are other people like you that should have it too. I have helped
other people.
Right.
And believe it or not, he's got his Purple Heart. Jim Smith, he got his Purple Heart. Right now, in the present time, I'm helping out a Marine. He was wounded in Iwo Jima. Matter of fact, it was in the Journal News. I got it in the Journal News. And he turned down his Purple Heart because 200 of them went into the Battle of Iwo Jima, only 20 of them came out. And he felt at that time he was not deserving of the Purple Heart. Now he feels that he is deserving it. What happened was I was in the town of Armonk, and one of my pet projects is getting the towns becoming a Purple Heart town. So I went there and I was accepting the proclamation from the town, and I was leaving, and I had to catch a plane at 4 o'clock in the morning. Once I was taking my vacation. And he said, "Do you mind if we talk to you for a brief time?" I said, "No problem." So he explained it to me. I said, "All right, I'm going away for a week. I'll come back and I'll get things going." And now we're waiting to see what happens. And we're hoping that there is something in his record. Because at age 93, there are no eyewitnesses.
Right, with all the records.
Right.
And
So,
Willie, what kind of story do you, where were you serving?
I got drafted into the Marine Corps. 50 guys in the induction hall, and they needed one for the Marines, and I got drafted and went over to Vietnam, got wounded in Vietnam, became a squad leader, didn't want to become a squad leader, but unfortunately the night before we had 3 squad leaders get hit, and I had been the point man, therefore I was good with the map reading, and they told me, "Your number's up. You're the squad leader." I'm like, "I don't want it," but got involved. Came home, like Gene, and I'm sure a lot of other veterans. Took my uniform, hid it. Always hid the fact that I served. So.
Were you too? Was it until you mentioned maybe 1990? And actually, you all said the same thing. You really, you know, hid.
I hid the fact.
I did
I
too.
didn't want anybody to know I was a veteran.
Right.
In 2010, the first time I was in the paper, some of my friends saw the paper and they were shocked to find out that I was, 1, in the military, 2, I was wounded.
Right. So you had the same, same.
Yeah, and I got involved as far as veterans' cause is concerned through Montrose, because I was getting services there. I had moved up here, and when I saw what I call a systematic cannibalization of services there, that's when I became active. But unfortunately, at that time, I didn't really have a platform until Fred London, who passed away, approached me. He was the commander of the original commander of Chapter 21, and he says, "Come on, you know, we need you." And from there on in, I just kept, you know, fighting for veterans' causes. You know, I find that very gratifying as far as helping someone. My belief is I will give voice to those who haven't found their voice, because we have a lot of veterans out there that just don't know that they have certain rights and how to go about dealing with the system.
Right.
And
it's a big system, and you know, we hear so much on the federal level, but then with our VA hospitals, you know,
we network. I call Karl. Karl calls me. We network. Mostly veterans advocate, and that's what I am, and that's what Karl is, and so is Gene, for that matter. We have our own little network, so we're not ashamed to go. It's not about ego. It's about, you know what, Karl, what's going on with this? Do you know anything about this law? And I'll get back to you, you know, back and forth. So we're able, you know, we do a pretty good job.
Right, you certainly do. Karl, you're working with the Putnam County Veterans Agency, so directly working for government in that sense. So is there an office that people go to?
Yeah, we have an office at the Don Smith building, Don Smith campus. We have a veteran service officer from the state of New York there 2 days a week. And I have a deputy, Art Hanley, that works with me, and we run a veterans residence that has 12 veterans that were, some of them were homeless, some were on the verge of being homeless, that I run out of my office, and we try to do other outreach to help the veteran, to help as Willie put it, some of these guys don't, some of them don't even know they need help. And we go out and we try to help them, and so they live a better life, life they deserve.
Well, the education part of it is so hard because, you know, you have an agency in Putnam, we have them in Westchester, we've got, in Peekskill now there's a little outreach from the Westchester County office, but at the same time it's just trying to let people know that there are programs out there to help them. Is that really hard? I mean, you all started out not wanting to get involved. Is that the first step, that people don't necessarily come back from the military? Are they the same now as they were with you during Vietnam? Are people looking at it differently? Are they coming to programs? Are they joining organizations? What do you think? What is going on?
I don't think they're in any rush, because don't forget, you're talking about young men, and they have nothing to hide, not like it was back in Vietnam. They get the pat on the back and everything else. And the trick is to go for the education. The states and the federal government is paying for it, but you've got to be willing to take the step.
Right.
Now, when I run into a veteran, first question I ask is, are you registered with the VA? Because a lot of veterans are not.
How do they go about doing that, getting registered with the VA?
Just go into any VA office and do it. But you know, the problem as I see it, and Karl and I, we've discussed it, is first of all, there's such a stigma attached to post-traumatic stress. And you get a lot of young men coming back and they want to go into law enforcement or the fire department. And the last thing they need on their record, or they feel that they need on their record, is a psych eval. So therefore,
so they don't want to get.
They don't want to, you know, go that route. The other thing is that so many of our young men and women are coming back with traumatic brain injury, post-traumatic stress, and some of them not even aware of it. Getting out of the military, and it's no different than when we got out. Just, where do I sign? Give me my ticket home, and I'm out. And therefore, they skip the line that says, here's your information, and this is what your entitlements are. I was speaking to Duffy, Lieutenant Governor, up in Albany, and I told him, you know, the biggest sin that New York State, in my mind, is committing right now is the fact that we did pass the law for the New York State driver's license that says veteran on it. Right then and there, you have an idea of more or less how many veterans there are in New York State and where the clusters are, so that we can get services to them. That's one. The other part of it that is not, it's underutilized, is because you have a mailing list now. Granted, there is confidentiality, but what is to prevent Karl from doing a mass mailing and saying, here, to the post office, you've got the addresses, get this information out that we're here and we're offering these services.
Are we hung up by the confidentiality issue? I mean, the Department of Motor Vehicles just won't do that?
With some of it we are. We could probably get eventually get the Department of Motor Vehicles, and there are ways to get the addresses. One of the biggest ways to get the addresses, but it only gets the veterans that own property, is the property tax roll have the deduction. But there's also lists that you can get from the federal government of recently discharged. You can only get that a veterans organization can't get them, but myself as Director of Veteran Services, I can get these lists.
But have people moved around a lot? Is that one of the issues that occurs? They come back maybe to their home, but then they're off somewhere else? Well,
especially somebody that's in the service may put down their home of record, but now when they're out of the service, that's not where they're living, so they slip between the cracks, and we don't necessarily get them. And that's one. I would just like to go back to something that Willie said, because I think it's vitally important, is with the post-traumatic stress disorder. We have a lot of veterans, a lot of young veterans not going for help. And that's why we're opening up programs like the Joseph Dwyer Peer-to-Peer, which the Assembly and Senate funded last year, and they've refunded again this year, where I believe it's 11 counties have it now, where we're going to be able to have programs for one-on-one peers talking to veterans, helping them through their problems, not with the stigma of going in to a mental health facility, going to the VA, but still we could watch them, monitor them, and see, you know, and maybe suggest that, you know, you need more help than we can give you. But at least it brings them out. They get an opportunity to talk about the issues. And this is something that's very big to peer-to-peer.
Have we started, I know, you know, we funded it, it takes a little while to get the program going. Are we starting to see some of that materialize now?
In some of the counties, some of the larger counties where they've had mechanisms to do this, it's established. In Putnam, we just signed a contract with an organization, the Mental Health Association, and they're going to be setting up, we're going to do the warm lines where a veteran not necessarily doesn't even want to come into the office, but he can call this number and talk to another veteran. Or we're extending it also to family members, so a family member can talk to a family member about what's going on. And I just learned something today. I was reading an article, and this I think you'd find interesting, Willie, because we always talk about post-traumatic stress disorder. In World War II, it was called battle fatigue. In World War I, it was called shell shock.
Is it all the same thing?
It's all the same thing. And in the Civil War, it was called soldier's heart. I just found that out.
Soldier's heart?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
I just found that out today. I was reading an article, not even having anything to do with post-traumatic stress disorder, and they brought that up. The travel. So it's been around forever.
And proof of that is I've spoken to friends whose fathers or parents were involved in World War II, let's say, or Korean War, and their parents never spoke about the war.
Well, you find that now a lot want to know, but, but it's too late.
And they also drank.
Oh, so that was their way of
and
with
that is one of the things that we are looking at now. It's self-medication.
Right. Could be drug abuse.
Self-medication. And the other thing a lot of people are not aware of, and I learned this through the social workers at Montrose, is the high that you get from the endorphins, from the danger. And let's say you do a year deployment and you're constantly on that edge. Now you come back and you miss it. The hypervigilance and everything else that goes with it. And that's why you have a lot of younger veterans riding motorcycles and doing all these dangerous sports and stuff, skydiving and everything, because they're looking for that high.
Right.
And I was like, wow, that explains some of my behavior when I first came home, where, you know.
That is very
driving
interesting.
100 miles an hour. I used to do that.
Right.
Never got caught.
Wow, that is really interesting.
But one thing, though, I'd like to mention is that 800 number that's available. It should be available to families, because my daughter has a friend. Her husband was a Marine overseas, did a couple of tours, and one night she calls my daughter. I want to talk to your father. I said, what's the problem? He's going into depression, we're not sure. So I quickly got that 800 number, because they were down in the Carolinas. I said, call this 800 number and they'll help you. And it turns out what happened was she called his buddies, and his buddies came over and they quieted him down. But he has problems.
Right, right. So, and the family sees it.
Right, and the family sees it.
And many times there can be abuse and so on as a result of.
Right.
That's one of the things that I've been looking at, and I believe I spoke to you when we were up in Albany, Carl. You know, funding from the state for every county to have a veterans court. That will reduce the recidivism in the court system and jails and everything else. If you fund every county with a veterans court, give them not the full amount that they need, but at least something.
Do we have any veterans courts, example, in New York at all?
I think
Bu-
in a
Buffalo,
Up in
Rochester.
Buffalo.
Yeah.
Buffalo is where it started. The first
Right.
Veterans Court in New York was in Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the model, everything, what he's using.
Across
I
the
believe
nation.
Rochester, there's a few others. Some of them have coupled it with the drug court.
Bronx.
And
The
they-
Bronx just recently opened up about 6 months ago. Westchester, I don't know what's going on with Westchester.
So what do you do if it's a case where there's an issue with the veterans? That goes to a specific court then, because there are other issues. Do you have people there that, or a judge that has better information about what somebody might have gone through with this in the service? Is that
What it comes down to is you get a first-time offender, DUI. Police have to report to his home because of domestic violence that's there and concern for maybe there's children involved and everything else. Bring him to the court. Once the judge ascertains the fact that he is a veteran, he might have served in Iraq, Afghanistan, then call in a social worker to do an assessment as to whether or not there is some mental health issues involved. Now the judge will have the power to say, either you're going to go through 30 days or you can go and do a program like Montrose, 45-day post-traumatic stress program at Montrose, where now you are getting him the help. And there's what that does is, chances are you won't be seeing him back in court because now you've given him the help he needs. It's a tax-saving program. With
Right.
it, you're talking about child protective services, you're talking about the court system, that's all money, jails, and everything else. So it's a win-win.
Right, for
It's a
everybody.
win-win. You save a life
is, yeah.
and you
Right.
save money.
Right. Well, we've also been trying to, we put money in to get people to hire veterans, giving them a tax credit. Do you have a feeling whether it's starting to work well or not? I mean, we do try these programs, and you're all up there lobbying us to do things. And then, I know it takes a while because it's education and to get employers to hire veterans so that they can get a tax credit. Do we have any idea how well we're doing on something like
I
that?
haven't gotten any feedback on it, but I have one question, because we had problems. There's a federal,
Yes, right.
similar federal program. And the problem we had with the federal program is that the person, the employer, was only monitored once a year. So they hired a veteran, they filled out the paperwork, they put it in, and what we had, sadly, is some of these guys getting fired within a month. But the paperwork's still in,
was still
and
in.
getting the
Right.
credit.
Right, that's not our intent.
We had asked that when this law was, that there was some safeguards to that, that it would be maybe at the back end of it instead of the front end. So you have to hire the person
Right.
and keep them for a certain amount of time in an established job and then get the credit. I don't know if that's how that law was
Right.
written, but that's
Well,
a problem
often
that
we
did
have to go back and adjust things because
Yeah.
we do it, I think, with good intent. I don't think we pass laws with bad intentions. We pass them with good intentions, but sometimes they don't work, or they have to be adjusted or corrected, or people take advantage one way or another,
Right.
which is really hard.
Well, the law that just went into, just got signed when we were up there up in Albany,
The job set aside.
it
That's
was
the jobs-
jobs set
right.
aside. Now,
For disabled veterans.
I'm all for it, provided they don't mess it up like the federal government, where it's page upon tons of pages of background, and that chases away
Right.
the local businesses. See, one of the things that I raised a fuss about was that at Montrose, they're doing paving and new sewers and everything else, and those jobs should stay locally. All of a sudden I look, and it's a firm from Arizona who got the contract, got the bid. For the life of me, how can we do that when we're trying to, in the Hudson
That would
Valley?
be a great contract for a disabled veteran that has a business to
Right.
do that.
Right.
Right, yeah, that would really be great.
But with Willie mentioning the that jobs bill, which is great, the set aside, we just had in Putnam County a very successful program. about 2 weeks ago. And I know it's hard with the time, but it was, instead of having a regular jobs fair, we had a jobs training fair where we were giving the veterans job skills.
Oh,
we had,
that's great.
they were getting how to interview, how to translate your military occupational specialty, MOS, into civilian job, how to fill out a resume. We had 52 participants.
That's great.
Only about 10 of them were from Putnam County, so we're, you know, which we had no problem with. We're glad everybody
reaching
came.
out to others.
One of the nice things about it, what we were able to do is every veteran that attended is going to get a free suit.
Well, often you need that for
to
go to that job interview.
Right. So,
depends on the job.
So we want to continue this in Putnam County. I know they have, I think they have one next week in Westchester, something similar. It's a little smaller scale. And we want to continue this. We work with Paladin Center, which was very good in helping us, providing a facility for us to do this work, and we're gonna try and continue it, because this is another problem these young veterans are having. They're either unemployed or underemployed, and we've got to help them, you know, in the job market.
Right, because you can't go forward if you don't have the job. You need the education. You talked about education. You need the job, and you also need the health care. I know we don't have a lot of minutes left, but health care, everybody's reading about this. What's going on the federal level? How are we going to get out of this dilemma? How are we going to get out of it?
One of the things that I'm going to bring to the National Convention, and I was talking to our National Convention, and I'm writing it up, is that I firmly believe that the patient advocate at any VA facility should not report to the director of that facility or to the visiting director, which is the regional director. It should go out of the area and to the inspector general. Why? Because the directors and the visiting directors are interested in one thing, and that's making quotas. And that's what happened in Phoenix. Quotas mean they get bonuses. Right now, the bonuses are $16 to $18 million a year given out to civil servants in the VA.
So what kind of
shameful.
quotas? If you serve X number of people, or
Yes.
or
So you
hours?
cut back.
Right,
Yes.
right.
Right.
Okay.
So, and that's what happened in Phoenix. The patient advocate will never go against the director, because then there's the possibility that they're going to get a bad evaluation at the end of the year. They're not going to bite the hand that feeds them.
Right. Willie, I think we're going to have to stop. I think we could go on this issue.
Oh, forever.
And I'm
Yeah.
sure anybody who would like to talk with you individually, I can certainly lead them to you. So I just want to thank you all for coming, talking about veterans issues, where we go, positive help for our veterans as they are here in our communities and are returning. So I thank you so very much. And if you have any questions for me, give me a call at 914-941-1111. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good evening. See, I knew I would. That was such a big one.